Lemonada.
Here's an interesting question. What if one small act of generosity became one of the most meaningful parts of your month? At Children Incorporated, sponsoring a child helps remove the barriers that poverty creates so children can stay in school and build brighter futures.
And perhaps that's the surprising thing about generosity. It changes everyone involved. Learn more at childrenincorporated.org. That's childrenincorporated.org. You can focus on exercise, nutrition, all the things you're supposed to do for your health, but if you are not sleeping well, it is very hard to feel refreshed.
Especially when you wake up overheated in the middle of the night, that completely affects my sleep, which is why I love the ChiliPad 2.0 by Sleep Me. It is a water-based mattress topper that controls your sleep temperature and works with your existing mattress. And if one person sleeps hot and the other sleeps cold, and that's Adam and me, each side can have its own temperature setting, which is amazing.
Yeah, and I also love that it automatically starts when you get into bed, so it feels seamless. Visit www.sleep.me/Gretchen to get up to $255 off your ChiliPad 2.0 with code Gretchen. This special offer is available for happier listeners and only for a limited time. Order it today with free shipping and try it out for 30 days. You can return it for free if you don't like it with their sleep trial. Visit www.sleep.me/Gretchen and see why cold sleep is your ultimate ally in performance and recovery. Hello and welcome to Happier, a podcast where we talk about strategies and suggestions for making our lives happier. This week, we will continue a conversation that listeners really responded to, a subject that we love, which is how do people know things? What things do we not know that everybody else knows? I'm Gretchen Rubin, a writer who studies happiness, good habits, and human nature. I'm in New York City in my little home office, and joining me today from Los Angeles is my sister Elizabeth Kraft. And Elizabeth, you and I are often sharing information together.
Yes, we are. That's me, Elizabeth Kraft, a TV writer and producer living in LA. And Gretchen, what I love is that these are very practical things.
Yes.
This isn't like time flies. This is don't put tinfoil in the microwave.
Exactly. And speaking of very practical reminders, suggestions, and information, we got this update on ladders.
Yes. Debbie said, more on ladder safety. I believe most folks don't realize the injuries that can be sustained in a small tumble. 30 years ago, our previous home was due for an inspection during its sale. My husband decided to change light bulbs while the kids and I were at a school activity. He fell from the stepladder and broke his shoulder in 3 places, resulting in surgery and months of physical therapy. Fast forward to a few years ago, I fell down the last 4 stairs in our home, which resulted in 3 surgeries. It was several months before I could walk unassisted. Both of these accidents from, quote, small tumbles were life-altering for the months of rehab and continue to cause discomfort with overexertion and age. Always have someone nearby and take extra care.
Yes, several people pointed out that just a step stool can also be dangerous. Again, the more innocuous, ordinary, and unthreatening something feels to us, the more careless we are likely to be. So whenever you are moving through space, which is a lot of the time,
yes,
be careful.
And then, Gretchen, we have a question for listeners in honor of our upcoming 600th episode.
Yay!
We want to know what has stuck with you the most from the podcast. What idea has given you the biggest boost or has resonated the most? We want to know.
Yes. These answers are starting to come in, and Elizabeth, it is so much fun to read them.
Yes.
Yeah, keep them coming. And this week, our Try This at Home suggestion is to learn from what everyone else knows. One of my secrets of adulthood is no one explains what's obvious to everyone. And in an earlier episode, we talked about how sometimes there's just something that everybody knows, and somehow you just never heard that thing. And why did you not know it? How does everybody else find out? It gives you this sort of feeling that there's some adulthood memo that went around and one page got left off your copy. And so we have heard from so many listeners about things they learned that they didn't know.
Yes.
And I think we're all sort of worried that there's things like this out there that we do not know. And so it's very fun to share them.
Yes.
There were things on this list, Alyssa, that I did not know.
Oh, absolutely. And this just came up the other day when I was talking to you, Gretchen, and I was asking, can I put a hot pan in the sink?
Yes.
And you didn't know.
No.
And I say, I've always wondered this every time I go to put a pan in the sink, and I don't because I'm worried I shouldn't, but then I forget to check.
Yes.
And you looked it up. And in fact, you should not put
Yes.
a hot pan in the sink. So
Yes.
they just keep coming in life.
Yes.
The things that most people know that we don't know.
That we do not know. Now, we got hundreds of responses. We can't say all of them. We will say this. We have not fact-checked all of these. This is what somebody says is a thing that everybody knows. You're not sure that it's true, check. They may not be true in all situations. Also, I mean, one thing that I found for myself, Elizabeth, is sometimes I will look up to see is something still true, because sometimes things move forward or things evolve, or it's outdated knowledge that at one time everybody thought was true and now it's not true. So when in doubt, it's never a mistake to double check. But a lot of these things are things where you're like, yeah, that's true. But listen, I want to start with two of my own.
Okay.
So one is little and one is big. This is something that I learned when I was a little kid in a ballet class, which is if you are trying to balance, focus on a single point. It's much easier to balance when your eyes are fixed on a single point. And I find this really helpful when I'm trying to do balance exercises now. So I don't know. Do you know that? Does everybody know that? I don't know. It's something that I feel like I learned kind of randomly. Did you know that, Elizabeth?
I did know that, yes, because I'm not great at balancing.
Yes.
So I have to try to do
Yeah.
that.
And if you want to challenge yourself on balancing, close your eyes. It's much harder when you're not looking at anything at all. The other thing is very, very serious. And I think everybody knows this, but maybe if you don't know it, you should know it, which is you should never dive if you don't know how deep something is. This is a very, very dangerous thing to do. And again, something that feels ordinary and unthreatening sometimes can hold very great danger. Do not dive if you do not know that there is a safe depth there for you.
Yes. In fact, you and I know someone who broke his neck doing that and had to be in physical therapy for a long time.
Oh, I know many people like that. It's quite common, I would say,
Yeah.
as these things go. And then let's go into what listeners had to say.
Yeah. So McKenna says, I was dimly aware that spare tires existed like on the back of Jeeps, but I never knew that all cars have them. I was in college, having owned more than one car before being told that I, in fact, had hidden spare tires all around me without realizing it. I made my dad laugh by asking him why he'd never told me about the secret tire.
Is that true, Elizabeth?
Yes, I have a dim memory that you can like lift the bottom of your trunk and there's a spare tire there, but until she said this, I wouldn't have actively known it.
Me neither. Okay. Kathleen says, your car's keyless entry fob has a key inside of it. So if your fob's battery dies, you can still get inside your car with the key. Is that true?
Yes, Gretch, I just did that 2 days ago.
Wow.
And I was very happy I knew about it. Louise says every U.S. elevator has a star on one floor by law. This is the floor exit in an emergency. This is so helpful in stores and businesses when you walk in from the street and don't know whether you started on floor 1, mezzanine, B, etc. I tell people this in elevators all the time. My husband taught me.
That's very useful to know. My pet peeve is when you don't know. This, for some reason, happens a lot in airports where you're like, I know what floor I'm supposed to go to, but I don't know what floor I am on now. Somehow it's like weirdly hidden information. Chelsea said, pickles are actually pickled cucumbers. Everyone looked at me like I was nuts for not knowing that. I was like 25 or so when I found that out. Yet it is funny. They do seem like a separate thing. I know exactly what she means.
Gretchen said, a dangerous one we figured out today. Our 16-year-old pulled into the garage as we were taking the dogs out for a walk. When we came back 20 minutes later, she was in the car in the garage with the engine running and the garage door closed, finishing up a phone call on the car Bluetooth. Luckily, the garage is far from airtight and it's a hybrid plug-in and she was fine, but we realized we'd never explained carbon monoxide poisoning. Put that on your list of things to teach your driving kids. Well, this is such a great point because I know I do often sit in the car for 5 to 10 minutes after I arrive somewhere. Mm-hmm. I never park in the garage, but if I did, this would be a danger.
Well, and I want to make sure my daughters know that, because since we drive so rarely in New York City,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things like this that don't come up as much. So I want to make sure that's a great reminder. Ashley says, I love this one. I was a full-blown adult before I found out that the addresses on one side of the street are even and on the other side are odd. It was one of those things that was casually mentioned as if everyone already knew. Exactly. I love that. Oh, can I point at a New York City thing too for people who are coming in from out of town? This is really wild, but sometimes in New York City, 2 different buildings will have the same address. And I'm like,
Oh.
Do you not know the purpose of having an address? How can there be 2 buildings that have the same address? And yet they do. So if you go someplace and you're like, this doesn't seem right, but it's the right address, sometimes there are 2.
That is so odd.
It's very odd.
Katie says, just learned this a few weeks ago. The skin of the kiwi fruit is edible and highly nutritious. Even the fuzzy kind makes it so much easier to eat my favorite fruit. I just wash it, cut the ends off, and slice.
Oh, there you go.
Did not know that.
Jenna said, last year a coworker was fined for not registering his dog. About half of the office, including me, had no idea this was a real thing. I did it that evening, but it feels like something that should have come up at the vet or when you get your rabies vaccinations. I've had 5 dogs as an adult and never knew this. There you go.
Gretchen, I don't know if I've registered our dogs. Is this everywhere?
Let's look it
This
up.
is new information to
Let's
me.
look it up. Registering things is very mysterious to me when you have to register things. Yeah.
Teresa said, my daughter was telling me she doesn't eat enough bananas, and by the end of the week, a couple go bad. I told her to buy less. She said she tries to get a bunch with as little as possible, but they usually come with 5 or 6. I explained she can rip off as many as she wants. Kara didn't know she didn't have to take the whole bunch. Well, Gretchen, before I read this email, I also did not know that.
There you go.
I have done the same thing of looking for the smallest number of bananas in a bunch because I thought I had to buy the whole bunch.
How do people know things? This is the mystery.
Yeah.
Jennifer said, I immediately remembered a moment with my son at our credit union. He was opening his first checking account. As he set up his PIN, it occurred to me that he didn't know the difference between a debit card and a credit card. I explained that the card could be used like a credit card, but was not a credit card. It was so much a part of my brain that it was hard to explain. Good point. Also, don't put cooking oil down the drain. Yes, both of these are very good things to know.
Yes. Kimberly says, I learned if you microwave at a lower temp for a few extra minutes, the food won't have any cold spots. For example, if you usually put something in for 1 minute on high, some parts will be hot and others cold. But if you put it in the microwave on level 7 for 2 to 3 minutes, it's nicely heated all over. Well, I didn't know that. So thank you, Kimberly.
That's good. Hannah said, one thing that my mother told me many years ago and that I have followed all my driving life. She told me never to wear flip-flops for driving. It may or may not seem obvious that one's foot could lose its way between the gas and brake pedals if the flip-flop falls off or gets stuck. As long as the sandal is fastened, this seems to prevent such a dangerous mishap, at least in my experience. Yeah, I think that's really good advice.
Yeah, that's one of those things. Once Hannah mentioned it, I remember learning, but I had forgotten.
Yes. Yeah.
Melissa says, in nursing school, I learned that Tylenol, ibuprofen, and aspirin are all different things and that too much of any of them can be really dangerous. You must check the ingredients on mixed medications like NyQuil to keep tabs on the total daily dose of Tylenol. Yes, that is a great reminder. I think a lot of people don't know that, Gretch.
Yes.
Then she says, from my dog trainer, I learned to step on a dog's leash to stop them jumping up on someone.
That is a great suggestion. I'm going to do that with Taffy.
Yes. And then she says, Gretch, this question about how do people know things reminds me of how I've been thinking lately about driving. My 2 sons are relatively new drivers, and I'm constantly reminding myself that driving is a team sport. We're all in it together, and no one wants to get hurt. As I brake in order to accommodate a driver that has made a mistake, someone will hopefully also brake for my sons when they make mistakes. Similarly, humanity is one big team, and we all carry our portion of the entirety of human knowledge so we can mostly cover for each other's gaps. I love this discussion and can't wait to hear all the nuggets of wisdom come pouring in.
We can all learn from each other.
Indeed.
Jean said, I went on a horseback excursion in Mexico, even though I didn't have experience riding horses, except for as a child at the fair. As the group left, I quickly realized I didn't know how to slow my horse down, and I was very uncomfortable. Complaining to my partner later, he was dumbfounded that I didn't know to pull in the reins. And then he said, it's kind of common sense. Not really. It's easy once you learn, but why in the world would I guess that pulling the reins would make a horse slow down? But everyone seemed to know that except for me. This is a perfect example. It's obvious once you know it.
Yes. Although, isn't there an expression about pulling in the reins? I mean, rein it in suggests slowing down.
Maybe she thought, oh, it's like you put out your rain buckets and rein it in. Who knows?
Yeah. But granted, if I were on a horse, I would need someone to tell me exactly what to do in all fashion. And here are two from Suzanne that are great. One, the stove is the best place for something hot. E.g., if a tea kettle is left on the stove and the water has burned away, the kettle is likely to get superheated and glow hot red. Do not pick it up by the handle and put it anywhere else. Just turn off the stove. Two, if there is a fire in a pot, grease, or something else, simply put a lid on it. It suffocates the fire. Similarly, if there's a fire in the oven, keep the door closed and turn off the oven.
Well, I think this is excellent because you do have this impulse, like, I need to get it off the stove, but picking it up is so dangerous. Like, you're much more likely to hurt yourself or do something terrible when you're dealing with a red hot kettle than if you just leave it there and let it cool down. And listen, this is just your point about the pan. Let the pan just cool down on the stove, then put it in the sink. So leave the hot thing on the stove and let it cool down there. Excellent.
All right, Gretch, coming up, we have more things that we may or may not know from listeners. But first, this break.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. We talk about mental health much more openly than we used to, but asking for help can still feel surprisingly difficult. In fact, BetterHelp's 2026 State of Stigma report surveyed 2,000 Americans and revealed that 85% of Americans believe getting support is wise, yet 74% say society discourages people from doing so. The gap is fascinating. We can believe something is helpful and still hesitate to take the step ourselves.
One way to close that gap is by normalizing conversations about mental health and encouraging people to seek support when they think it could help. BetterHelp has over 30,000 therapists and has served more than 6 million people globally. They also do the initial matching work for you using a short questionnaire to help identify your needs and preferences. Don't let stigma stand in the way of support. Start therapy with BetterHelp. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/Gretchen Rubin. That's betterhelp.com/Gretchen Rubin.
Between diets, workouts, and endless advice, it's hard to know what actually works for weight loss and what's worth your time. That's why Hers offers access to an affordable range of FDA-approved GLP-1 medications that now includes the Wegovy pill and the Wegovy pen. It helps you regulate your appetite, eat less, and keep weight off. Plus, Wegovy is the first ever GLP-1 for weight loss, so there are no needles needed.
Everything is 100% online through Hers. You'll connect with a licensed provider who will determine if treatment is right for you. Ready to reach your goals? Visit forhers.com/happier to get personalized, affordable care that gets you. That's FORHERS.com/happier. Forhers.com/happier. Weight loss by Hers is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is a registered trademark of Novo Nordisk AS. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information, and restrictions, visit forhers.com.
I recently needed a gift for someone who is genuinely hard to shop for, and I didn't want to do the usual gift card or something generic. So I turned to Zazzle. I ended up creating a custom mug featuring photos from a family trip, and it felt so much more thoughtful than just grabbing something off the shelf. That is what I love about Zazzle. You're not just buying a gift, you're making a gift.
Zazzle is a custom marketplace where you can personalize almost anything, from mugs and tote bags to cards, phone cases, and more. You can browse millions of designs or start from scratch and create something completely your own. Everything is made on demand, so there's no worrying about items being out of stock. And with more than 30 million customers, it's become a trusted place for meaningful gifts. Right now, save 25% on your first order at Zazzle.com. That's 25% savings on your first order at Zazzle.com. Go make something amazing. Zazzle.com.
Okay, we're back with more things that people know, or perhaps they don't know. Mary Ellen said, I was living away from home and owned a car for over a year before learning that you have to pay registration every single year, not just when you buy the car. And you have to put a sticker on the license plate to prove it again and again every single year. Again, registration. You have to do these registrations.
Yes, this is something that did make me smile just because it is such a part of life, having to deal with car registration. And is your sticker current? I've gotten tickets for not having a current sticker because it's just the last thing I want to think about.
Yeah.
Hollis says, you have to get your tires rotated. This is something, Gretch, that I may have learned when I got my driver's license, but I've never thought about again. I don't think I've ever had my tires rotated. And I don't even understand why you need to get your tires rotated, because aren't they always going around and around?
But I think they take different pressures in different positions. Look it up. Judy says, if you try to make a boiled egg in the microwave, it explodes like a grenade. Ask me how I know. Okay. Okay.
That's funny. Jennifer says that you're supposed to tip your hairdresser. She did not know that. Can I say, I wish there was just some document, final, worldwide, everybody agrees on document about tipping, because it is so confusing.
Yes. Lori says, I was 18 before I learned that plastic items may melt in the bottom of the dishwasher. My first roommate couldn't believe I didn't know this. It was a big mess. Well, back when we had our raging controversy about how to load a dishwasher, that was one of the things that the experts say, which is it's hotter at the bottom, so put plastic things up at the top. So you heard it here.
And in fact, Gretchen, just yesterday, I put a cup that I didn't realize had like a seal around it, like a plastic seal. And I put it in the bottom, and in fact, it melted off. So I am a living example of what Lori is saying.
Good to know.
Corey says, narwhals are real animals, not imaginary unicorns of the sea. I found out in my late 20s when I had to rattle off a list of fantasy animals for a game. In my defense, they still look pretty magical and improbable to me. I will admit that I just Googled them again to be double, triple sure they're real before posting publicly.
If you don't know what a narwhal looks like, look it up and you will say, yes, this looks like a fantasy creature. But you know what this reminds me of, Elizabeth, is people that don't know that Delaware is a state. Apparently, I have never questioned Delaware's statehood, but apparently many people are like, no, Delaware isn't a state. Yeah, it is a state. It's a state.
One of the 50.
Yep. Now, Jen says something that I do not know. I have never heard this and I'm dying to try it out. Jen says, for 54 years, I've had trouble closing anything screw top. The groove thing's always jammed up crooked. Just last week, my husband told me to start by turning the lid a little bit counterclockwise first before starting righty-tighty. Going backwards lines the groove things up. 54 years. Well, Jen, I did not know that either. I cannot wait to try.
Me too. Anne says, double dipping, the kind with chips and dip. I didn't know that was a no-no until I saw someone get criticized for it on a TV show.
Oh, that's funny.
Yes, that is a party foul. No double dipping.
No double dipping. Okay, this one comes from our cousin, Elizabeth, Sarah. Hello, Sarah. And this knocked me out. I've never heard this. I was like, can this even be true? I looked it up and it is true. As Sarah says, the different color bread ties mean different days of the week. So you know which is fresher. I looked this up. There's an article on Food and Wine, and this is what it says. Although some shops use their own methods and it's rare to find bread more than a couple of days old still on the shelves, most grocery stores follow a similar schedule with their bread tag coloring. Monday blue, Tuesday green, Thursday red, Friday white, Saturday yellow. Okay, they leave out Sunday and Wednesday because most bakeries don't bake on Sunday and Wednesday. And if you want to know the day of the week and the color, they're in alphabetical order. Monday is blue and Saturday is yellow. This is such a deep cut.
So clever.
Sarah, thank you. I am going to run to the grocery store and examine the bread tags the minute we get off.
Yes, I love this. Emma said, I loved your episode about the unwritten rules of everyday life. It brought back a memory of the time I went to a friend's wedding when I was 22. I hadn't been to many weddings and had only attended them as a child or teenager with my parents. When one of my own friends announced she was getting married, I was so excited and went shopping. I tried on lots of dresses and found what I thought was a perfect one for me. I wore it to the wedding and I had a great time, but let's just say I got some weird looks. The problem, my dress was white. Well, technically cream, but still not okay. I learned the hard way that you can't wear white to a wedding. I'd never heard that rule as a young person, but now that I know it, I'm still a little embarrassed 15 years later. Yes, and I think that is still true today, that you're not supposed to wear white to a wedding. In fact, one of my reality shows that I watched, Gretchen, somebody was accused of wearing white to a wedding, and it caused a hubbub, but she insisted it was pale pink.
Megan said, you shouldn't open a full sealed water bottle on a plane, especially if it has a straw. I opened my daughter's Owala on the plane and it sprayed water all over the family in front of us. Luckily, they had made the same mistake in the past and forgave me for soaking them. Okay, good to know.
Yep. Becky says, when driving on a 4-lane interstate where 2 lanes go east and 2 lanes go west, for example, there are a surprising number of people who don't know that the left lane is not a driving lane for casual driving or just another lane for driving. It is for faster traffic or for passing on the left. When drivers drive at or below the speed limit on the left lane, it forces cars to pass on the right, making for a more dangerous situation. There are always exceptions, but cars driving reasonably near the posted speed limit should attempt to stay in the right lane when possible. This is a pet peeve of my husband's, and I have to admit I drove many years without realizing this. Yeah, Gretchen, I am a right lane driver.
Yes.
I always try to stay in the right lane.
Yeah.
Because of this.
Because of this, yeah. It's interesting how many of these are related to cars and driving.
Yes.
Marley says, one unwritten rule that absolutely astounded me was never to clean with bleach and other products at the same time, as you might gas yourself. This feels like something everyone should definitely be told. Yeah, you want to be very careful about mixing products. Also, I think always look behind you when you leave is another one of these. You had it on the podcast as a life hack, but it had always seemed like common knowledge to me. Yeah, always look behind you.
Kate says, here is my story of an awkward moment 40 years ago raised something I was clueless about. I was raised in a small Midwestern town. My dad was a self-employed optometrist. So the economic model I knew was go to work, get paid, miss work, don't get paid. I went to a large state university working a variety of minimum wage part-time jobs. When I had graduated with a degree in nursing, I took my first real adult job at a large teaching hospital. On the first day, all employees, from physicians and nurses to dietary aides and clerical workers, were assembled in a large auditorium for an overview session. When the HR rep gave the presentation about benefit packages, I was floored. I had never heard of sick time. I thought I had scored the best gig in the world at this institution. I actually raised my 22-year-old extremely naive hand and asked out loud, you mean if I'm sick, I can stay home and still get paid? My question was met with pin-drop silence and wide-eyed stares. Hopefully, we do a better job of teaching our young adult kids about things like health and car insurance, 401ks, and vehicle registration now.
Yes. Rebecca had a very interesting point about this idea of how do people know things. She wrote, I thought about this question and realized that many of my lessons in hygiene, safety, cooking, and life in general were during sleepovers. Sleeping over changes the dynamic from guest to immediate family. This is true even if you are staying at an extended family member's house. What is mildly annoying in your own home might be completely unacceptable in another's. A skill that was never taught in one family is expected in another. My mom had a no crumbs rule, so every friend who stayed over learned to use our vacuum, often for their first time ever. Staying with my older cousin for a few days, she taught me how to wrap a towel around my head after a shower. Before this, I didn't know there was a way to stop having a wet back every morning. Every house has its quirks. I remember a dad showing me how to fix their finicky toilet so I wouldn't have to ask for help. I hadn't known you could open the toilet top, let alone do something easy to fix it. I'm an early riser and often was awake before my friend during sleepovers. This gave me many opportunities to chat with the morning person parent. Adults love showing a new kid something. Here, let me teach you how to make the perfect scrambled eggs. It's unplanned interactions with others that teach us and let us teach most things in life. However, we won't learn or pass them on unless we are open to people, not distracting and distancing ourselves. I think that's a really good reminder.
It is. And it's one of the problems with working at home.
Yes.
We always talk about teaching each other
Yes.
things at work.
Yes.
When we're not together, we're not
Yes.
just casually passing on information.
Yes, exactly.
Naomi said, I was listening to your podcast when you spoke about how do we know things, and I just had to write. One of my secrets of adulthood is I didn't know anything until I knew it. I have used this phrase countless times in job interviews and speaking with the staff I manage, and I find great comfort in it. I used to worry that I didn't have any training or knowledge for a task or job, but then realized that has always been true. I didn't know multiplication until I knew it. I didn't know how to write in cursive until I knew it, etc. Remembering that has allowed me to feel more confident in taking on new roles and responsibilities. So rather than feeling haunted about what you don't know, I encourage you to feel curious about what you will learn next.
Good reframing. That's great.
Yes.
Molly said, your discussion got me thinking about how I learned some of these unwritten rules. Some of them I learned the hard way. For example, by putting aluminum foil in the microwave. Then I remembered the hints from Heloise column from the newspaper. It was on the same page as the comics and advice column, the only page I ever really read as a kid, and I learned a lot of things from Heloise and her followers. Baking soda in the washing machine with my stinky exercise clothes, rubber bands to help grip things, nail polish remover, or rubbing alcohol to remove sticky residue. The list goes on. My mom got me a book of her hints when I moved into my first apartment, and I still have it 20 years later. Along with you two and Sarah, she's at the top of my list for women who help me adult. Thanks for all you do. Oh, that's so fun. Yeah, I love those helpful hints.
Yes.
Well, what a great collection. Let us know what you tried, what you learned, what other valuable things would you share? We may return to this. I think this is just endlessly fascinating and useful.
Yeah.
Let us know on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Facebook. Drop us an email at podcast@GretchenRubin.com. Or as always, you can go to the show notes or go to happiercast.com for everything related to this episode.
All right, coming up, I give myself a yearly demerit. But first, this break. Have you ever noticed that some of the most meaningful moments in life come from helping someone else? It's easy to think that changing the world requires doing something extraordinary, but sometimes lasting change begins with something much smaller, helping one child overcome the barriers that stand between them and an education. That's what Children Incorporated has been doing for more than 60 years.
By partnering with trusted volunteer coordinators who know the children and families in their own communities, Children Incorporated helps provide essentials like clothing, shoes, nutritious food, school supplies, and hygiene items, giving children the support they need to stay in school and build brighter futures. The surprising thing about generosity is that it changes everyone involved. If you've been looking for a simple, meaningful way to make a lasting difference, visit childrenincorporated.org to choose a child to sponsor today. One thing I've learned about summer dressing is that the pieces you love most are usually the simplest ones, the things you reach for again and again because they're comfortable, versatile, and always seem to work. That's why we keep coming back to Quince. I've been especially loving their European linen pieces. They're lightweight, easy to wear, and somehow look polished without requiring any effort.
Quince makes elevated essentials using premium materials like European linen, organic cotton, and washable silk, but without the traditional markup. Their linen pants, dresses, and tops start at just $32, and their soft denim and organic cotton sweaters are perfect for cooler summer evenings. I also love their 14-karat gold jewelry, simple pieces that instantly pull an outfit together. Make your summer wardrobe feel easier. Go to quince.com/Gretchen for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/Gretchen for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Gretchen.
I had one of those weeks where the to-do list just kept growing, little repairs, things to mount, random projects I kept putting off, and eventually it all starts taking up mental space, even when you're not doing it. And that's why I've been using TaskRabbit. You can book a skilled tasker for furniture assembly, home repairs, mounting, yard work, whatever you need help with.
And you can search based on reviews, availability, and costs, so you feel good about who's showing up. I finally handed off a project I had been avoiding, and let me tell you, it was such a relief just to have it done. I use TaskRabbit, and you should too. When life happens, your to-do list grows. Get ahead of it now and get $15 off your first task at TaskRabbit.com or on the TaskRabbit app using code HAPPIER. That's $15 off your first task using promo code HAPPIER with the TaskRabbit app or at TaskRabbit.com.
Okay, it's time for Demerits Gold Stars. It's an even-numbered episode. So, Elizabeth, what is this yearly demerit?
All right, Gretchen. Well, health forms are due once again for school for Jack. And once again, I am tardy in finishing my health forms. It's the same thing every year, which is I fill out all the forms that don't need a doctor's signature. And then I say, I'll do those another day. And then I get an email from the school saying, you have not done your forms. And they've really upped the stakes, Gretchen, because he can't get his class schedule until these forms are filled out. So I am scrambling.
That's a good stick. If there's carrots and sticks, that's a good stick because your child really needs their schedule on the first day of school. That's a big one.
Yes. And I happen to know he's going to want some changes in his schedule. So we definitely need it ASAP.
Okay.
Every year we know it's going to take the exact same amount of time, whether I do it before it's due or after it's due, and it's going to be so much more stressful. So let me just do things when I need to do them.
Can you say you'll do it today?
I am in the process.
Okay, good.
As we speak.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yes, in process.
Sometimes by articulating the demerit, we get ourselves going. So that's good.
Yes, I wanted to be able to say to you when we recorded that I was in process.
Good.
All right, Gretch, how about you? What is your gold star?
Well, I'm giving you, Elizabeth, a gold star, and Adam and Jack, because you made the very long trip from California to spend the 4th of July with Eliza, Eleanor, Jamie, and me, and also our mother came from Kansas City. So we had a real family get together. And this was really important to me because one of my empty nest resolutions is to elevate the 4th of July into a major family tradition. And I think when you have a new tradition, you really want to be consistent. And then later on, when it's fixed, you can be more flexible and really still trust that the tradition will hold. But for me, with this oxymoron, new tradition, I really want to do it right. So we get it under our belts. And so I so appreciated that you guys came all that way. It's just so much more fun when you're there.
Well, Gretch, if this had been my week for a gold star, I was going to give you a gold star for hosting and making it a new tradition. And I think your hosting is really elevated. You seem, and by elevated, I mean you seem more relaxed than you ever have before.
Good.
So gold star to you too.
Oh, good. Well, we had a wonderful 4th of July. The resource for this week. Last summer on the podcast, we talked about our reading retreat, which was amazing. And so many listeners were intrigued by the idea of doing their own reading retreat that I put together a guide if you're going to plan your own. We learned a lot from our first retreat. And in this guide, I share some practical tips for creating one yourself. If you are interested in that, go to happiercast.com/reading retreat. And speaking of reading, Elizabeth, what are you reading?
I am reading Who Needs Friends? An Unscientific Examination of Male Friendship Across America by Andrew McCarthy.
And it will come as no surprise that I am reading Virginia Woolf's Diaries, Volume 3. And that's it for this episode of Happier. Remember to try this at home. Learn from what everybody knows. Though, how do they know? We don't know, but we can all learn from each other. Let us know what you know.
Thanks to our executive producer, Chuck Reed, and everyone at Lemonada.
And here's your rhyming reminder. If you love this show, leave a review to let us know. It really helps the show.
Until next week, I'm Elizabeth Kraft.
And I'm Gretchen Rubin. Thanks for joining us. Onward and upward. Elizabeth, I think another thing where I'm haunted by, like, what am I supposed to know here is filters. A lot of things have filters, and you're like, do I need to change the filter? How do I know I'm supposed to change the filter? Do other people know about changing the filters? Can I just leave this filter alone?
Agreed.
I don't like a filter.
Agreed. I am very tardy on changing most of my filters, for sure.
I think you and I don't like upkeep. We just want to get something and just like, there it is, so be it. We don't want to be fiddling with it.
Well, I think most people don't like upkeep.
Well, I feel like maybe we have a special aversion, but maybe we're just like everybody else.